Happy Friday and happy Fridays with Fidelman. I'm Cheryl Fidelman, the Conscious Codependence coach and the founder of the Conscious Codependence Collective. Today's topic on Fridays with Fidelman is the codependent imagination. Please like or subscribe to my channel. Please comment and let me know what, if anything, stood out for you, struck you, touched you, sparked any ideas that you'd like to share. And all right, here we go. When it comes to the codependent imagination, a lot of things fill our imagination that are the opposite of purity and innocence and color and fantasy and dreaming and imagining and working towards who we're designed to be. The opposite of that, what fills our imagination for a lot of us that identify as codependents, when we're having our most intense codependent moments, our imagination is filled with fear. Our imagination is filled with what I call future tripping. And I've put out videos on future tripping before. It's a very commonly used distinction that I use in my work, that codependence is a constant habit of not being present. It's a constant habit of future tripping, how we think things are going to go 5 seconds from now, 15 seconds from now, 5 years from now, that we future trip. Like, for example, if one of my codependent behaviors is repression, and we all have different codependent behaviors based on the unhealed traumas that we have from our childhood, that if mine is repression, oftentimes, which it used to be very much, I was like silenced and muted and didn't speak up a lot out of fear. And I call that a future tripping act because what I'm doing is either consciously or unconsciously thinking, well, if I speak up, this person's going to get mad at me, and if they get mad at me, then I'm going to feel bad. And so I'm future tripping all of these scenarios that would keep me quiet and not saying anything in the current moment. And so what is taking up the space in our imagination oftentimes is future constructs that we are creating in our mind's eye that keep us still, not moving, not growing, not changing. They keep us in one of my three tenets of codependence: the want to be wanted, the need to be needed, or the need to prove oneself. When we're triggered into proving ourselves, our imagination gets sucked into the kind of the dark side, because we're using our imagination to prove, to get ourselves out of something, to prove our goodness. And then as we're in our brain, we have this what I call a codependent hangover, when we're replaying the scenario over and over in our heads, when we're imagining what we should have or could have said, or we're imagining what we think the other person was thinking. So there's so many things that we use our imagination for codependently that are protection mechanisms, visions, conversations, dialogue, replays that are taking up our imagination from a codependent standpoint. And when I say from a codependent standpoint, I mean from a place where we are trying to survive, really. Codependence is a survival technique. And I say often that my foundational, simplest definition that I use of codependence is that my experience depends on your experience. So in other words, my happiness, my self-worth, my value, my existence in the moment depends on how you feel and what your mood is. So I become hyper aware of what's going on with you so that I can find myself in the moment. It's like a constant chess game in our mind that is sucking the power, the magnanimity, the color of our imagination, and not just our cognitive imagination, but the imagination of our emotions, the imagination of our senses, the sort of the bigness and magnitude that we can go with our mind, our emotions, and our sensations. And if we can really practice, one of the hardest things there is to do for a codependent, which is to actually sit in, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what this other person is thinking. I don't know what's going to happen next. And that we fill that I don't know with excitement and innocence and purity and imagination, rather than protection as of like, I know what's going to happen here if I say this, and I don't know what's going to happen there if I make that choice, and if I make that decision, that we're looking at all the possible paths thinking we know how it's going to go. Conscious codependence recovery is a return back to our innocence, our imagination, our purity. It's a release of all of these protective mechanisms that we learned to survive our childhood, that sucked away our imagination. And as we release all of this protection, we're back to our purity and our imagination and our creativity. It's possible that every human is an artist. And I don't mean a painter, an actor, or a writer. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a specific form of art. But we are artists in our imagination, because where our imagination goes, should we allow it to, really can lead our lives, lead us to who we're designed to be and the interesting adventures that we can allow ourselves to go on. In relationship, in our environments, it can bring us to more out-of-the-box thinking and finding meeting new sides of ourselves. All right, thank you so much to listening to my thoughts, theories, and rants, specifically today on the codependent imagination. Please like or subscribe to my channel. Let me know what, if anything, struck you today, and if you want to add to it, if you have any questions. And also, we are relaunching, we're doing a second air of the Conscious Codependent series. That is my free 10-speaker series that I have on listening, because I'm really focused on what I call codependent listening in my work right now, that perhaps all of our unhealed trauma can be found in the filters through which we listen. That perhaps all of our relationships are created in the filters through which we listen to them, especially and including and most importantly our relationship with ourselves. Happy Friday, have an awesome weekend, happy healing, and life is now. Bye. I want to add something that I think I left out, that when we can sit in what is the most important place, I think, for codependents to get to, for conscious codependents to get to in their recovery, like I said earlier, is the place of I don't know, is the place of not knowing and feeling safe and surrendered in the not knowing. And when we can stay safe and surrendered in the not knowing, I talked about we can expand our imagination, but also we can deepen our connections with other people. When we actually can say, I don't know what that person's thinking. I don't know who they are. I notice I'm assuming that I know who they are or what they want from me. I'm assuming that I know what they're even saying or what they even mean. And when we can get back to our innocence and our purity and our imagination, we can lean into our curiosity and ask, like, hey, who are you? What's life like for you? Or what is it that you meant when you said that? Because there's something I interpreted and I don't know if it's true. So I wanted to include my thoughts and ideas on imagination. I want to include curiosity in there. Like a return back to our imagination and our freedom to be curious about others and about ourselves. All right. Thanks again for listening.